Black and white.
Meeting order.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call the members of the board of school directors. 7 present. Excused. Agenda revisions.
I have none. I just want to let you know I'm doing my report with the recognition of the students.
Want to recognize the students and staff. Dr. Hartzell.
Class stands for character, leadership, attitude, service, selflessness, or strive for excellence, or self-awareness, or self-resilience. The purpose of the Class Act Emerging Leader Award project is to promote bright, well-rounded, publicly educated students. In addition, the goal is to inspire publicly educated students to continue their education and become self-reliant, productive, caring, and full citizens.
Character, leadership, attitude, service, selflessness, all qualities that exemplify an outstanding student and citizen. Now being recognized as the Northwest PA Class Act Emerging Leader. One student from Erie, Crawford, or Warren counties will be awarded this prestigious scholarship. Watch Erie News Now 1st at 4 the last Wednesday of every month as Erie News Now reviews this month's recipient. Brought to you by 10-2 Credit Union, Orthopedic Associates of Meadville, and Velocity Network.
Now, Mr. Garland, to discuss our student of the month.
Thank you, Dr. Hartzell. As I said in that ad, this month we actually do get to recognize the actual recipient of the Class Act Award for the month of January, Ms. Maya Post. So I'd like to just read the referral that I made for Maya, along with Dr. Ray. One would be hard-pressed to find a student who's more fitting of this recognition than our own Maya Clancy Post. She's unquestionably a class act in the sense that she possesses strong morals and character, is a leader within several clubs and organizations in our building, always has a positive attitude and mindset, and selflessly dedicates her time and provides service to her school. To say that Maya is an integral part of our school culture would be an understatement. Maya has been a consistent member of AFS, Night on Broadway, Reading Club, the school musical, in school play, and the vineyard vocalist throughout her high school career. She's also been involved in cross country, dance team, Inspire, the junior class committee, National Honor Society, and student council. Maya has also earned an academic letter. Despite all of these commitments and obligations, Maya still excels in the classroom. Her 3.973 unweighted or 4.577 weighted GPA is second in her graduating class. One additional anecdote about Maya: the girl can sing. Ms. Post can regularly be found at a home sporting event belting out our national anthem. Her musical ability has also been showcased in several theatrical performances, including her unforgettable role as Ursula last spring in The Little Mermaid. Maya has plans to attend college and study applied intelligence and national security with a focus in foreign language. She hopes to become an intelligence official or diplomat. While these are incredibly lofty goals, Ms. Post is fully capable of achieving them. Her character, leadership, attitude, service, and selflessness will make her an asset to her post-secondary institution of learning and whatever company or agency is fortunate enough to hire her someday. With that being said, we are proud to announce that Ms. Maya Post is the 2023 month of January Northwest PA Class Act Emerging Leader Award recipient, which gained her a $1,000 scholarship and a chance at a $5,000 scholarship at the end of the year, depending on her essay that she will write, which I'm sure will be great. So,
On behalf of the board of directors, we want to congratulate you and best of luck in your future. Thank you. Congratulations. Golden Apple. Tonight we are honored to have a wonderful representative of the Northeast School District teaching staff, and we have Mr. Otis who will do the recognition.
Thank you, Dr. Hartzell. Good evening, everybody, board members, community members. Before I even get into the Golden Apple, I will attest to Maya's performance as Ursula. I still can't get my young children to watch Little Mermaid because her performance was so good, petrified. So I'm proud of you, Maya. All right, so I am here tonight to introduce one of our most recent Golden Apple Award winners at the Northeast Middle School. And I'm very excited to do so because it's about time we get to celebrate education, and it's about time we get to talk about all the great things that are happening. In fact, I don't know if everybody knows this, the Northeast Middle School, 4 consecutive years running of a Golden Apple Award winner. So I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to the retired Mr. Tom Pyle, Ms. Samaya Cardos, Mr. Ryan Cassidy, and of course tonight we get to recognize Mrs. Tracy Brummett. And that's not her first time, but I'll get to that later. Mrs. Tracy Brummett and Natalie Nagel, could you come up with me please while I continue? So let's begin. Mrs. Tracy Brummett started her teaching career as far back as 1994. She started it at St. Greg's School in kindergarten. And a little side note, give a shout out back there to Mrs. Hathaway, our assistant principal at the Northeast Middle School. She subbed for Mrs. Brummett for Mrs. Brummett's birth of her first child while on maternity leave, Dawson, which I think is a cool little connection here. And after St. Greg's, Mrs. Brummett then moved on to Ripley Central. So she spent 4 years at St. Greg's in kindergarten and 4 years in 3rd grade at Ripley Central. And then she began her career at the Northeast School District. She has been with us for 19 years. She began in Title I, and she spent almost half of her career there. She then moved on for a brief stint in 1st grade, and then finally came to where she belongs, the Northeast Middle School. And she actually started in 6th grade math, which means something, because it was in her 2nd year of being a teacher of math in 6th grade at the Northeast Middle School that Mrs. Brummett won her first Golden Apple Award. So she is a 2-time recipient. And it's important to note that it was math because her passion and love is ELA. She loves the English language arts. In fact, I would put it to anybody here that's had her, or anybody here as a parent of a child that's had her, and I would challenge him to find a person better at teaching the science of reading than Mrs. Brummett. But she won a Golden Apple Award as a math teacher. That's how extraordinary and distinguished she is. So now let's fast forward. She has been, for almost 9 years, an ELA teacher in 6th grade at Northeast Middle School. And here we are today with Miss Natalie Nagel, a 7th grader, but as a 6th grader, she had Mrs. Tracy Brummett. And what I'd like to do, because my words are not nearly as important as Natalie's, I'd like to read for you the letter that earned Mrs. Tracy Brummett her 2nd Golden Apple Award. One of the most extraordinary teachers I've ever met is Mrs. Brummett. Even though I am now in 7th grade, the memories of my 6th grade language arts teacher continue for more than a year. She is a teacher with a fantastic heart and always chooses to be kind to others. She is not just about teaching grammar and reading. I cannot describe her because she's more like a feeling that spreads within you. I cannot even describe that feeling in words. So I'll begin with a quote. "Whoever is happy will make others happy." This was stated by Anne Frank, and I feel it connects with Mrs. Brummett. Mrs. Brummett was always happy to be teaching and making a great day for her students. She made the learning environment comfortable and made us want to be there. It felt as if she was always there for you. She really was more than just my language arts teacher. She was a loving, kind, and amazing person. She is so devoted to teaching her students. When Mrs. Brummett got voice surgery, she continued to come back and she taught us with a microphone system. The dedication that she showed when her voice felt so awful still amazes me to this day. But the day I knew to nominate her was when some classmates and I made a really fun video and we wanted to show it to her at the end of the day. She told us after seeing it how much she missed us and that she had had a really rough day. And when I heard that, it hurt me too. It made my heart break. I knew then that Mrs. Brummett deserved and had earned the Golden Apple Award. Mrs. Brummett truly is one in a million. Congratulations.
Again, congratulations on behalf of the Board of Directors. Thank you for all the hard work, and thank you for nominating her. Congratulations.
Good job.
Oh, and shout out to Tracy's husband, Brian. It's his birthday. Thanks for coming.
27 again?
Congratulations to Courtney Jepson, Corin Holdsworth, Taylor Van Tassel, for their participation in the PMEA District 2 Band on February 9th through the 11th at Seneca High School. Through audition, Taylor has earned a share in the Region 2 Band to be held at the Marion Center High School in March. Congratulations to those students. Students from the Northeast Middle School participated in the math competition at the Zone Science Center at Gannon University this past weekend. Students from 13 middle schools competed in both team and individual events. The competition is sponsored by the PA Society of Professional Engineers and Gannon University to get students excited about STEM and engineering careers. And I wanted to make a shout out to the Vineyard Vocals this past week during Valentine's. They did Vineyard Vocal Valentines throughout the schools, and they were wonderful. So thank you, Mr. Hyde, and to the Vineyard Vocals.
Okay, thank you. Move on to public participation. Anybody in the audience like to address the board for an agenda item? Okay, moving on, we'll do reports and presentations. Mr. Fox.
Right, this evening we have our annual capital projects update, and items that we are
stage lighting upgrade, that's the next step in the renovation of the auditorium at the high school. That'll be a complete, that's the house lights, everything, controls, switches, the panel, transformer, everything. It'll all be on the LED screen, touch screens, 3 different areas, so it's easy access, easy to use, people to use for shows. That's it. Next up, the electrical switchgear panel upgrade, that's already out. That's already been put out. We're actually gonna do the panel upgrades this summer. Electrical switchgear, unfortunately, because of supply chain issues, will not be delivered until almost November. So that will probably be installed next summer. But we're saving money, we paid for it. Next line item, gym walls, at the high school, we're gonna paint those, take down the boards.
Hey, guys.
They're all outdated, we don't play half of them anymore. They talked about a couple of the class levels are looking at putting some banners up or some other items on the walls, so we're just gonna clean them up, look nice, and hang whatever banners they have. Scoreboard replacements, that's the 2 in the high school main gym. They're both failing, they're actually so corroded, they're working. And we can kind of leave it at that, it's quite a bit, just, functional. So we're able to limp them through basketball season, but they'll definitely need to replace this summer. Next line item, middle school freezer cooler, that's already out for bid, that's already been awarded. That'll happen this summer. Right now, the goal is last 2 weeks of June, first 2 weeks of July, that'll be installed. And that's a complete removal of the entire cabinet. Condensing units, everything. Elementary school, pool liner and starting block replacements. That's out for bid right now. The opening is next Thursday, correct? Yes, next Thursday is the opening for that. We had some issues with some of the starting blocks, so we're gonna tie that into the program, we're gonna get some new ones, clean them up, make them a little nicer. So, Mr. Rios here, you probably have one. Next line on the pool ceiling carpet replacement, that's related to the insurance claims, from the damage we received from our roofing project. We're still not sure how much it's gonna be covered under the insurance claims, so that's kind of a placeholder for us at this point. Next line item, the architectural engineering and study services, for the elementary center, that's for the renovation that we'll be looking at possibly down the road, I believe, 4 years out, or 5. Depending on whatever how the studies come back, but that's to allow HHS to go out again to tell us what we need, don't need, what they recommend, and reallocate some areas. District-wide, first one is a big one, asphalt replacements. That is gonna be the gym parking lot, the western side of the parking lot, and the entire north driveway around the high school. That'll be the entire area around the bus garage. We're gonna blacktop out to the salt shed. Right now, the blacktop stops at the edge of the building, so we got about almost 100 feet, that's mud, and buses park in. We have some areas down, that'll be on the south side behind the warehouse that a bunch of drivers park in now, that's just mud. So we're gonna blacktop that. We have a couple of drains back there that are almost 6 inches higher than mud at this point. So obviously they're not working, so we have to get those cleaned up. So that's all part of that. Concrete replacements, various areas around the district, that's kind of our standard because of the threshold being raised, we raised that from 22.5. Walk behind floor scrubber, right now that's slated to be at the high school. We're gonna have those on a rotation right now. They buy them pretty much every year, get rotated out. The tenant that they have right now there is a 98 vintage. It works, but they need something a little nicer. It's taking a little bit longer to run it. So. Last line item, field house architectural studies, that will tie into part of the stadium renovations. That's the pre-work we have to do on like water and stuff like that.
I'd like to make the concession stand when you're doing that.
That's gonna be everything, the entire complex. They'll look at the entire complex to see how better, what laid out, what our needs are, stuff like that. what we can't do, because we're for a watershed, so we're kind of limited on what we can actually do. But they'll look at all that.
How's that culvert holding up, by the baseball field? Where Kate did, you guys did a great job there, is that holding up pretty well?
Yeah, actually, it's actually doing really well. We're pushing a lot of water over the first barrel. Their retention pond is now actually a pond, so.
Everything seems to be pretty good right there.
Yeah, it's flowing pretty well. Actually, part of the, blacktop, the drain that goes underneath the ball field right there, goes underneath the roadway, that's actually gonna be replaced. I'm gonna pipe that blacktop over it. That concrete's just failing, it's breaking apart, the steel's failing. So just to clean that up, make that nicer, we're just gonna get rid of that, put a pipe and then blacktop over. So that's part of the blacktop renovation. So we'll do.
Thanks, Bill. Just to backtrack a little bit on, the high school, that, the stage house lighting upgrade, and some of the items like the switch gear and, the gym scoreboard replacement, that just goes back to our 2013 renovation where we were very selective on renovating key parts of the building, but not all of the parts of the building, to save money then, to stretch out and not repair what was still functioning at that time. We've come to that time where there are still items that need to be addressed, and this is one of those years we're gonna address some of those areas that we didn't get to in 2013. In the cash flow, the 5-year projection cash flow that you received earlier, I probably, if you look at that in detail, there's a line called a deferred maintenance high school line. I budget about $100,000 every year to take care of those type of projects as they pop up. I'm hopeful that we're getting near to the end of those, but before you know it, we'll be ready for another renovation in 2033. But that's still a long ways away. So, but the other note I want to make in the slide that we just saw, it had an asterisk after it. Those are not items that we're asking for to be added to the next board meeting agenda, because they were approved at the previous board meeting, and or they've been bid. But I wanted to highlight what we're looking at working on actually this summer. And then the freezer cooler is also being funded out of the food service fund, not the capital projects. So just wanted to highlight those areas. Now, this first slide here that I'm gonna discuss is really, what we started to do back pre-COVID. We had a lot of pressure, looking at our athletic facilities, our exterior athletic facilities, and the condition of those fields, those playing surfaces. And, during those subsequent years, we addressed, the baseball and softball fields in the summer of 2021. The company that came to do that was out of Buffalo. The company, I can't remember the name, but they do fields, like UPMC Park and Major League Baseball parks across the country. They are a very, knowledgeable, company, and we've actually changed our supplier for, the fertilizer and all those, the seeding, and how we actually, work those fields now has been changed, because we're using a different, company and a different provider that, and actually we're using less supplies now than we were before, and getting better results. So, we've been very pleased with that company, the new company. They're very responsive. As they're traveling across the country, they will stop in and check on, this little double-A school district field, which is pretty neat, they'll come by and check on us. So stadium facility renovations, phase 1, what we're hoping to get started, back in February 2020, we started the exploratory process. The board had committed $800,000 for the track replacement, and, that discussion was, we had put it on the agenda to do $800,000 this time of the year, because the track is well beyond its life expectancy. I know it's at least 10, maybe 15 years beyond its expectancy, and that was the second burden to address that. And then during the conversation and the board discussion, it led to, we should address the stadium playing surface as well. If we are looking at to do an artificial surface on that, the time is to do it now or in conjunction with a track project, just because of the construction traffic that would go over the track. So that was started. studies and survey work. And, literally those documents, at least the survey work and underground utilities, that's, he was doing that work, during COVID in the spring of 2020. Paperwork came and, the blueprints came, they arrived in June 2020, and I put them in my closet. He called in October wanting to know where his payment was, and realized that it was in that tube of blueprints, but because of what we were dealing with at the time, we were in pandemic planning mode, we were looking at how we were gonna operate, so that project, which was a very good effort and community start, just got literally put in a closet, and now here we are, 2023, we're bringing it back out, and hopefully, trying to get some, wind under it and get it going again. So what we've learned in that time frame, we learned that if we were going to address both the stadium, the turf and the track, and the things around that, plus the field house, it'd be cost prohibitive to do those projects together. And so our focus is to do what's important, which is the playing surface for the students, the student athletes, for the band, and for the community, and also the track, and worry about the field house in a later phase. So phase one, what we're hoping to get further down the design process would include synthetic turf and track installation, site preparation, stormwater management, fencing, which is the interior fencing around the track and also around the perimeter of the stadium, the asphalt walkways going in and out of the stadium, and field equipment renovations. What I mean by that, things like the goal post, soccer goals, flagpole, the equipment to take care of that type of surface, those type of things. And then LED lighting upgrade, to take advantage of using a lighting system that will be very cost effective, knowing that the goal, this facility will be used a lot. And, going from a facility where you're only limiting play to maybe 75 touches a year because of weather, to going to where you're gonna use it well over 750 times with phys ed classes and practices, baseball, softball practices in the spring, and of course all of the fall events that happen. And fall can be tricky depending upon weather. You can make it a long time on the stadium field if you have the right weather conditions. If you have the wrong weather conditions, you can end up with a mud hole pretty quickly. But what's the nice with going to a synthetic surface in our climate is the playability year round, which we don't have the luxury of having a season or seasons where you have it year round. But a synthetic surface does get you that. So we're hoping to do construction over the summer of 2024. That is out a year simply because of availability of contractors to do the work and also material costs. We're hoping that cost will stabilize and supply for labor will also stabilize. Phase two would be field house renovations, and we would like to start that process this year, but that's simply with the engineering study, architectural study, and that's to go through the feasibility and preliminary design, so we have an idea of what type of cost are we actually looking at. Are we looking at really large numbers? Are we looking at small numbers? And how we can plan for that. We also would like to get our athletic facility committee back up and running. That way we can have our community input and our stakeholder input from our athletic coaches and community members on that project, on what would be important for the playing surface and the track facilities, the field events, and the other exterior fields. Long-term capital projects, next building, Northeast Elementary Center. If you recall, this building was renovated in 1999, and we have done some improvements to this building. We've done HVAC, mechanical, plumbing, lighting. Some of the windows have been upgraded, and that was completed in the summers of 2020 and 2021. This past summer, we have the complete roof replacement was started, and we're getting to the final stretches of that. hopefully we'll wrap that up before June 30th. But so far, we've spent $8 million, to take care of just those items. And those items, those aren't the fun items. They're above the ceiling, in the walls, on the roof. Nobody sees it, but it keeps the building functioning and keeps the students dry. And of that, though, we did receive $3.4 million of federal funding. That's where the bulk of our ESSER money went, ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. That's with the $3.4 million. But as you can see, there's no state funding. Plan Con was approved, the framework, Plan Con 2.0, but our state legislative body has yet and has no plans to fund any future construction in school districts in the state of Pennsylvania. So we're still, if it wasn't for the federal ESSER funds, there are districts across the state who are in a position where you just can't do anything at this point. I was just looking through some of the legal notices this past week, and I know we have at least 2 districts that have floated bond issues in the past week or in that process. And I'm sure they're in the situation that they can't wait any longer. They need to do the project. They have to float the bond issue, and they're gonna have to do the projects with or without any state funding, and I'm assuming they're without state funding, but they probably are tying up some of their ESSER money. They're probably gonna do what we were doing as well, try to stretch the dollar as far as they can. So what we wanna have recommended is to go with the architectural engineering study to get this process started for the renovation, interior renovation of this building. You know, the Davis side is 1965 vintage, this side is 1999 vintage, some components of the Davis side are 99, but the way instruction is happening in the classrooms, some of the special education classrooms that we now have in-house that we didn't have in 1999, some of the small group construction areas that are needed that were not a thought or not a need back in 1999, 2000. Those are the type of things that we need to go through our interviews with staff, administrators, and community, and go through the feasibility study to determine what is the best transition or interior renovation that we need to do to bring the building into the current instructional model. So we've spent $8 million, but there still is a lot to be done. Carpet, ceiling tiles, walls that may have to be moved, doors that may have to be moved. There's a lot of things that it doesn't seem like a lot, but this building's how many square feet? 120,000 square feet. Well, that's a lot of carpet, and there's a lot of expense and it adds up quick. But we want to start that process so really we can understand where we need to go, and then that will help us as we start to get into a design phase or into the actual engineering phase. We can have a more concrete concept of where we need to go, then we can just keep proceeding with that project. So now, the two projects like Fieldhouse, Phase 2, and the elementary center, these are long-term projects. These are things we want to start discussing and researching so we can plan down the road what we need to have for funding to do these projects. The last item is Northeast High School. We did look and had a potential Guaranteed Energy Savings Act project like we did at the elementary center at the high school. And the main aspects of this is electrical upgrades, LED lighting, auditorium, HVAC upgrades, chilled water system heating, air conditioning for the building. We have a roof there that we need to replace in the next 5 to 10 years. And then our gym floor also will need replaced, and unfortunately, typically you sand them down and refinish them every 10 to 15 years. We can't sand the floor down anymore. It'll have to be replaced with new wood. While we're at that, it's a time for us to address some of the bleacher issues we have on the north and south bleachers. We did replace the west wing bleacher dome section a year ago or 2 years ago, and so the bleacher replacement, that's the time to do it when the floor comes out as well. And so that will be another project when we get to that. So this is, I believe this will be the last of the 2013 renovation we pay for it? Good question. Well, currently we have 2.2 million in capital project fund balance. We have 3.5 million in our general fund that's committed. And, I'd also recommend that we move 2.5 million that we received from our ESSER 3 funds. Actually, we haven't received yet. They're coming in April of this year. Hopefully we'll get them in May. And when that happens, I'd request that we move to 2.5. So that would be a total of 6 million that's committed in the general fund for future capital projects, plus the 2.2 that we have. So it would be a total of $8 million ready to start some of the projects. There were some comments recently from an Auditor General report about fund balance and districts having excess fund balance. This is one of the primary reasons why districts across the state have large general fund balances. They commit for future capital projects. We committed for the VOTEC, $2 million we committed probably 10 years ago, and for a project that finally came to fruition, and it will be completed sometime next year. We opted to commit to fund balance. Other districts opted to float bond service, or float bonds. We were just in the position that that was our strategy, and we were able to pay out of our fund balance. We have taken a philosophy here that a lot of our projects, the reason that the Plain Monica High School was not as, didn't cover as many areas, it was mainly done to be a cash transaction, not to issue bonds for it. And then the money from that plan con then was the seed money 4 years later, and that's what paid for our middle school project. Again, no bonds were issued for that project. Then the next step was the money from the middle school plan con, when that money came 3 years after the project was over, that money then started where we did the first phase of the GISA project for the elementary side. That was the first, that first project was $2 million, and the middle school plan con money was 2.7. We started phase 2 when we found out that the federal funds were going to be available for ESSER, the ESSER 3, the ARC 3. That's when we greenlighted and started our phase 2 process on the GISA, that second round. Then with that freeing up those funds, then that allowed us to have the $3.5 million available to do the roof. So we've been very, very frugal, but we've only been able to be frugal by using the tools that the state permits to commit money for long-term projects. I'm not gonna get too far into the other commitments that we have. There are, it's about $8 million that's committed, but we commit for long-term needs with long-term money. It's not typical for governments to do that. Governments are 1 year budget only. They only care about money in, money out. That's not what you find with most school districts in the state of Pennsylvania. Most business managers plan accordingly because the state doesn't. And so we set aside money for future retirement benefits. We set aside money for healthcare clinics, self-funded. We set aside money for construction projects. We have to pass our budget by June 30th every year. So does the state. The state doesn't always fulfill their obligation. When the state doesn't fulfill their obligation, we have to come up with cash in order to operate. $500,000 on a payroll doesn't come if you don't have money from the state budget. So if you don't have money ready to go and have cash flow, then you're not paying employees, you're not paying your staff, you're not paying your bills. We're shutting our doors. And the Auditor General report that came out and that was highlighting some of these issues, it was just what it was. A lot of these reports are politically motivated, and they are really just done to stir up fire that does not point at the root cause of what the issues are. And, you know, if you are fired up about it, contact your state legislator and ask them real things like, how do you fund unfunded mandates like research and healthcare and special ed and plan on? I mean, those are real issues that need to be addressed where states would not have to, or school districts and districts would not have to plan for their lack of plan. Sorry, I got off on a little soapbox on that one.
Okay, all right.
Let me get back to it. Okay, so I recommend you commit the funds. And why do you commit in the general fund? You commit it in the general fund because the board does the commitment. The board takes the action to do that. The board can change that action if they need to. If we were to transfer that to the capital project fund, you can't back out of capital project fund, it has to be used for capital project funds. So when you get a situation when the governor and the state can't pass a budget until October, and we need cash flow, we can't have 6 million sitting in our capital projects that we can't tap. Because then we'll have to float a tax anticipation note, or I guess it'd be a revenue anticipation note because it's state funded. 58% of our funding comes from the state. So sometimes you have to take, legal or legally approved actions that are within the state parameters of law of doing appropriate action to be a fiscal responsible district. And, it's a shame that the Auditor General chose to, go after 12 districts, and, one of those districts shouldn't have been on there. It just didn't make sense, but, more information, go to PASO, they can enlighten people on some of the real situations. So, I'm also, we mentioned briefly one of the action items was on the insurance claim, for the damage. What I wanted to put on for the presentation is we want to address things that we need to get done this summer, things that we couldn't do because we had to open school. And that's pool, the ceiling, we're already gonna be shut down anyways because of the pool liner. It makes sense, let's get the ceiling fixed in the area that was damaged by the roofing contractors. We have a couple rooms, the library, and a couple classrooms that have carpet damage that, it was not repairable and need to be replaced. These are items that we know we're going to get reimbursement for, but we need to take action now so we can bid, quote, whatever we need to do to get those going and get them scheduled for this summer. And that money should come back. I'm anticipating that we'll have claims in excess because there's other things that we're not doing right now that the insurance company is still sorting out. And I don't know when those funds will get to us. I don't know how many years it will take. But when those funds come, I'm gonna recommend and commit them to the elementary center renovation, obviously because it's for elementary center, with damage. But we want to address just the immediate things that we need to take care of this summer, and the rest, will be ongoing. It's more substantial. So all future projects will have to be 100% locally funded. I mentioned that before. PlanCon, Act 70 2019 was passed, but they never have passed any legislation that would actually, put funding into it. And on our 2021 bond issue, we refinanced our existing bond in August of 2021, I believe it was. And, those issues will be paid off in the fiscal year 2030-31. That's not that far away, that's 8 years, 22, 23, 2030, 31. But more than likely, a new bond issue will be necessary. And I don't know when. I mean, that's what we're gonna do, this feasibility engineering study. We'll get an idea of what are the projects gonna cost, and then we'll have an idea of what the bond issue should be. And the timing is good with that because, the last 2 years of our current bond issue in 2021, it stepped down from an annual payment of 1.5 down to 1 million. So in the last 2 years, we have about $500,000 of bond issue that would be available. So we could, go out maybe in let's see, 31, 28, 29, we could go out in that year and issue bonds potentially. Not far away, that's 6 years. And that would be the start of, $500,000, then $1.5 million. The intent would try not to be over 10 years, which is exactly where we are right now. Just, go out 10 years, and the amount, probably in the same amount, be anywhere from 10 to 15 million at the time we go to issue, which is really low, percentage-wise of our borrowing, capacity. There are a lot of districts who are stretched out 30, 40 years now. I'm not recommending that. I think, a short term, and as everyone knows, with the code mortgage, you want to do a 15-year mortgage on your house if you can, instead of a 30. If you can't do a 30, you want to do a 20. It's no different with a public project. Just, our bond issues are mortgage, and the goal, with having cash on hand, is we're having a very healthy down payment, and then a very short bond issue, a very short, payback period. So, I do see a bond issue in our future, but it will be somewhere in the next 5 to 10 years. And once we learn more about how much Field House Phase 2 might be, how much the phase one, build stadium project will be, and how much the elementary center, and how much the high school pizza would be. When we learn how all those things are in the next couple of years, we'll have more concrete plan, for the next 3 to 4 years on how to fund it. So, a lot to cover tonight. Bill covered all the short term. This is what we're gonna hit this summer, and then unfortunately, a couple of things we had to kick this summer 24. But I hopefully wanted to share with you some of the longer term stuff, so that you're aware of some of the big ticket items that we have that we'll have to address down the road. So, any questions for me?
Well, I just had a conversation with Senator Watt on this side, because I was upset by it. And I told him, no, why don't you have your boy, teacher's retirement fund is $80 billion in the hole? Okay, that's a lot of money. You know what he said? The reason nobody cares about that, because it's guaranteed by the taxpayers in Pennsylvania. I said, well, that's not really a good answer. If you have fund managers, they gotta perform. If they aren't performing, get rid of them. You can take that money and just give it to Edward Jones or Vanguard by yourself. They can do a better job than those people. And I said, why don't you guys look at health insurance? Figuring this mess out so we can have good, affordable health insurance for everybody in our district. That's what this guy should be doing, not doing something like this.
We're recommending that, the teacher's fund, and we smooth out after thing, that you abandon it on a year where you drop the employer contribution. It's ridiculous to me that we're dropping 35.24% and going to 34% this coming year. We're dropping the contribution for an unfunded retirement liability because we had a successful couple of years. To me, that's just lunacy, because it's gonna step back up in the 40% range 3 or 4 years down the road. And they did the same thing, back in 2006 and 7, and it makes no sense. And what did business managers do back then? I was one of them on this district, but I did it, because we were at, about 8% is what we were setting aside for employer contribution, and it dropped to 4%. What did we do? I didn't drop my 8%. I committed it. I kept it at 8%. I committed it for the future because we knew it was coming, and then we knew it was gonna peak out at 20%. So we committed at 8, and then every year we went from 8 to 9 to 10. We did a nice small incremental approach, and by the time we got to 20%, we didn't have a big wall. We planned for it because a taxpayer does not want to go from 2%, 2%, 10%. They don't want that. Nobody wants that. But that's the things the state needs to fix. It's just the common sense touching stuff. But I'm sorry, I'm really. Anybody have any questions?
I got one. Bill, going back to like the long term for the high school, how's that gym floor holding up? I know we had the roof damage, we had a leak in there. Is that?
It's actually holding up pretty well. Typically what you do is when you sand them, when we took them off, when we took that all the way down a couple years ago, you can usually do that about 3 times. And that was the first time that would have been done. And that's why we were saying probably 5 or 6 years to sand for replacement. It's holding up fairly well.
I know it got a lot of damage.
Actually from the water leak, we had pretty much nothing. We were able to handle that. We were on it pretty quickly. Got it extracted, got it dry. I think we only replaced 2 boards, which is not bad. I mean, we usually get more of that broken every year from chip class than anything else. I mean, 2 boards is nice.
I just remember we had some damage and I saw it on the long term, like I didn't know if we need to make it a short term or whatnot, but.
Yeah, no, it's holding up fairly well. The bleachers are a concern. We put some money into it. What they call the trackers, the motors that drive them in and out. They don't make anymore. We had to find it. Took about almost 3 months. If you notice, some of the meetings, the bleachers were always out. Gym classes didn't really appreciate that because you couldn't move back in. It was out or in, or they, and you do it by hand for 1 people. So, bleachers are my biggest concern. Boards I use them really well.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, guys. Thank you, presentation.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the superintendent's report. Okay, we'll do board report. About the Northeast Rec Commission.
No report, we are meeting next week.
The Northwest Tri-County Intermediate Youth Dr. Blaisdell. Your County Tech School is employed.
No report meeting next Thursday.
School Health Council.
together that we're gonna do towards probably in May, and so we'll have more on that in the future. That's all I.
Anybody got any questions for anybody? Move on, items for action, on the minutes. It's recommended the board approve the minutes of the regular meeting on February 2nd, 2023. Can I have a motion? George, second, any alterations or corrections? Seeing none, all in favor of accepting the minutes, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, we're on to business, Mr. Fox.
It is recommended that the board approve business items number 1 through 7 as listed.
We have a separation of one. You have a motion, please? You have Paul, you have Sally. Is there any discussion on business items 1 to 7 minus 1B? Seeing none, on the roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Bottom?
Yes.
Mr. Rankin?
Yes.
Dr. Glasgow?
Yes.
Mr. Boyd? Yes. Mr. Billion?
Yes.
Mr. Shuka? Yes. Mr. Martin? Yes.
You know, vote on 1B, that motion. Jim? Second. Cory, any discussion on 1B? Not on the vote, please.
Mr. Rankin? Dr. Glasgow?
Yes.
Mr. Boyd? Yes. Mr. Billion?
Yes.
Mr. Shuka? Yes. Mr. Martin? Yes. Mrs. Bottom?
Yes.
6-0 on abstention.
Thank you, everybody. We're on to personnel. Mr. Hart.
It is recommended that the board approve personnel items 1 through 14 as listed.
Motion? Jim? Paul? Is there any discussion on all of this?
That we will recognize her at the end of the year as well.
Any discussion? Not on the roll call vote, please.
Dr. Glasgow?
Yes.
Mr. Boyd? Yes. Mr. Billion?
Yes.
Mr. Shuka? Yes. Mr. Martin? Yes. Mrs. Bottom?
Yes.
Mr. Rankin? Yes. 7-0.
Move on to student travel request. We have none. Staff travel request, Dr. Hart.
It is recommended that the board approve staff travel request item number 1 as listed.
Second. Jim? Discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Boyd? Yes. Mr. Billion?
Yes.
Mr. Shuka? Yes. Mr. Martin? Yes. Mrs. Bottom?
Yes.
Mr. Rankin? Yes. Dr. Glasgow?
Yes.
7-0.
Additional educational operational function.
It is recommended that the board approve the Northeast School District athletic participation in the PIAA sports schedule for the spring 2022-23.
Motion. Jane, any discussion with this?
Keep in mind that they may change because of lack of refugees and weather.
May change the life bus drivers. Okay, have a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Billion?
Yes.
Mr. Shuka? Yes. Mr. Martin? Yes. Mrs. Bottom?
Yes.
Mr. Rankin? Yes. Dr. Glasgow?
Yes.
Mr. Boyd? Yes. 7-0.
Okay, move on to items for future presentation, discussion, report, action. Dr. Hart.
Special board meeting on Wednesday, February 22nd. Technology project presentation, March 2nd. Approval of IU5 budget for the 23-24 school year, March 2nd. Budget process timeline, proposed draft presentation, March 23rd. Proposed final budget for approval, April 20th. And moving forward, final budget for approval, June 1st or June 15th.
Okay, upcoming district events.
In-service day for tomorrow, there's no school for students. It is a hybrid day for seniors and they are required to do a project. No school on Monday, President's Day, February 20th. Celebrate Reading Week, Monday, February 27th through March 3rd. The Northeast High School Dance Team Symposium will be on Friday, March 3rd and Saturday, March 4th at
guys are mind readers. I think you already knew what I was gonna say before I came here. You kind of addressed it, Mr. Fox. And one of the things that kind of rubbed me the wrong way is saying that it was politically motivated. Yeah, I printed out all this stuff because I had a thunder to come in here with, but you stole my thunder. This here, the budget here, this budget here, and then what he's talking about, the auditor's report. I think what the problem was in this auditor's report, we chose the 12 schools at random, and the trend seemed to be that there was a large sum of money sitting in reserves. You guys have what, 12 million sitting in reserves? Is that, I don't know, is that correct? Nobody's answer. January 31st, 2023, signed by Mr. Banking, right? 12 million plus. That's a large reserve. I understand that things gotta happen, you gotta pay for this, you gotta pay for that. But then there's a tax increase without any public participation, without a vote from the public. I think that's what the problem that they found here is, that they found in this thing, that that's what's happening. But the public should be involved in that. The public should have a say. If you're gonna raise our taxes, we ought to have a say. It can't be left up to 9 people to sit in a room and decide to raise taxes on the public. The public should have a say. I think that's what this was talking about. That's all I gotta say. Thanks for stealing my thunder.
Thank you, Judge. Very good. Somebody else like to address the board?
Hi, I'm Erin Beckus. My information is on file. Good evening. I'm standing up here again, a parent, resident, taxpayer asking for answers from public officials of the Northeast School District who refuse to answer the public. The solicitor stated that he has administrative legal authority to use our taxpayer money to file an appeal to the Commonwealth Court, as well as the complaint against Constable John Wilson last year. I have repeatedly asked the solicitor to provide the definition of administrative legal authority in addition to the legal statute, laws, contracts, or agreements, and or memoranda of understanding or any legal document revealing the legal authority which Mr. Sennett stated during his presentation on December 1st, 2022 board meeting. He stated he has full authority to answer any litigation matter brought forth against the Northeast School District without prior approval of the board directors at a public meeting. Section 703 of the Sunshine Act defines administrative action as the execution of policies relating to persons or things as previously authorized or required by official action of the agency, adopted at an open meeting of the agency. The term doesn't include the deliberations of agency business. So what this means is, in order to constitute administrative action, the appeal or complaint must have either been previously authorized or required through official action during a public meeting, which never happened. It is very troublesome that the Northeast Board of School Directors places blind faith in the same solicitor who Erie School District removed in 2019 for discriminatory comments at a public meeting. Mr. Sennett also stated on January 19th of this year at the public board meeting that I had no First Amendment rights, followed by trying to take the meeting over and threatening to kick me out. The Northeast School District School Board Directors need to decide whether to terminate Mr. Sennett and the Knox Law Firm immediately. But will they do it? There has been far too much this board has ignored. For instance, the board president unethically, illegally, and unannounced showed up at my parents' home, screaming and intimidating my elderly mother the day after all the board directors were served with the petition to remove. I provided a letter my mother sent to Ms. Hartzell and Mr. Sennett, which was never shared with the board about Mr. Mavilia's actions, and nothing was done. What is going on here? Is there no integrity on the board? Are you not aware between right and wrong? Is this the type of behavior of a board president? Is this normal behavior for someone who volunteers for their position? Why does it look like he's trying so hard to hold on to this position? And I'm still waiting for answers. I would also like to know why Ms. Blystone and Ms. Hartzell, district representatives of the career committee, are being accused of causing turmoil, and why Michelle was accused of plagiarism. You as public officials owe the parents, residents, and taxpayers of Northeast answers. How are our taxes being spent? Why is it so difficult to obtain information when a right to know is submitted? Is there transparency? Is there deception by public officials? I believe the taxpayers and residents of Northeast forgot that the board directors are elected by the taxpayers and voters, and they work for us. Thank you.
Anybody else like to address the board?
Yeah, I would.
Okay, yes, sir.
Jeff
Yeah.
Buholtz, community member, taxpayer. With respect to the reserve balance, I'm fairly familiar with New York State. There we call it the unappropriated fund balance. That was, money that you have to set aside because you can't accurately predict what you're gonna have to spend in a year. So you have some money set aside. We do that on our own house budgets. In New York State, you're legally only allowed to spend up to 5% of what the anticipated budget's gonna be. Is there such a law in Pennsylvania? Your unanticipated fund balance can only be so high?
Anything else?
When would I get an answer to that? Next meeting or what? How's that work?
We'll send you an email.
Pardon?
We'll send you an email.
Okay, great.
You have all that? Okay. Anybody else? Okay, Northeast Board of School Directors will meet in executive session following the evening meeting concerning areas of misconduct activities or which is not required by law, specifically safety, student, and personnel. Motion adjourned. Jim, second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you, everybody. Meeting adjourned.
There's